All right, so the question was on visitor-based segmentation. When setting up segmentation in analytics, I like to find three primary concerns to help me set up good segments that I can learn from. The first is, where did people come from? That tells me a lot about a person based on their expectancy and based on their need. Looking at where someone comes from will tell you also how engaged they will be with your content. Then once I know where they came from, I want to know what they did. What was the behavior that they exhibited? Because their behavior will tell me if what they saw matched their expectancy. And then their behavior will tell me ultimately what they did. Did they do something like a conversion, which shows me that they had a good experience? Or will they meet a KPI, a goal, or some other measurable object that will tell me whether it was a good session or a bad session? By looking for these three elements, that's how you can initially set up segments that will teach you what people are doing on your website. I like to add context through these questions because ultimately what I want to know is visitors who came from this source, who saw this page, performed this action, ultimately then need to have a value assigned to them. So I want to know for this particular segment, where did they come from, what did they see, what did they do, and how much is that worth to me? Because then I can start looking not only at the attribution of where people came from, but I can combine that with their behavior and see if their motivation for coming to the site matches what I wanted them to see, and are they a profitable visitor? One of the first things we can do just by evaluating behavior is find out if someone is what we like to call a commuter or are they a traveler. By a commuter, I mean someone who comes to the website repeatedly, multiple times a day. They can be looking for scores, they can be looking for news headlines, financial information, stocks. They are checking repeatedly to find information that is important. Or they could be a traveler, and these are people that make trips infrequently, but because they have something specific in mind that they want to see. And so they spend a longer amount of time, they look for more information, and they tend to stay in a specific subject area. And so the first level, again, that we're looking at is what kind of visitor this is. What type of information are they looking for so we can measure it more effectively? Now, when it comes to segmentation, one of my favorite examples of segmentation is in the old series of Star Trek. Now, I know there are a lot of geeks here because this is an analytics session. How many are familiar with old Star Trek, Captain Kirk Star Trek? All right, good. Enough. All right. Where I learned about segmentation is watching Star Trek, because in Star Trek there's something called the red shirt phenomenon. Who knows what the red shirt phenomenon is? Someone has to know. What happens if you wear a red shirt on Star Trek?
You attack.
You die, yes. So in the old series of Star Trek, we started doing some numbers and we watched all of the old series and we did analytics on Star Trek. And what we found is that, we found out there were 450 people on the Starship Enterprise. We know that because we found that number on Wikipedia, so it's true. 54 deaths in the 3-year season, and that gives us a 13% mortality rate. Or we call that a conversion rate. Now, when we started breaking down the numbers, we found that those that died in the series, 11% wore yellow shirts, 9% wore blue shirts, and 79% wore red shirts. Now, that's only the first segment by shirt color, and it confirms our assumption. However, there's something beyond just looking at the segment, beyond confirming the assumption. And this is what makes a good analyst. They ask one question that separates them from all the other analysts. And that question is why? Causality. Why do red shirts die more than anybody else on the Starship Enterprise? Well, we went back to the numbers and we started looking around and we found that 57.5% of the time, if you beam down to the planet with Captain Kirk and you wear a red shirt, you're not going back. You will stay there on the planet probably as dust. Now, we also found that 42% of the time, if you wear a red shirt and you are called out for security duty on board, 42% of the time, you're not going to survive. So we now know the two largest causes for red shirt deaths. Those are our conversion rates. And so we know the two biggest factors that increase our conversion rate. But if we want to decrease our conversion rate of red shirts, we need to find a cause that keeps them alive. So in looking at all the episodes of Star Trek, we found that there was one action that caused the red shirts to survive more than any other. And that action is when Captain Kirk meets an alien woman. Because when he does that, only 16% of the time, red shirts will die. And so analytics is not just about getting the numbers and finding out, yes, this is true. Analytics is about asking why. Why does this happen? Because when you know the why, you can change your behavior. You can change actions on the site to make things you can increase or decrease when you understand the why. And so the first pass at analytics, setting up segments, is really just looking at what are people doing, what are they looking for, what is their motivation. And so we set up buckets of keywords to try and understand what people are doing, and we put them into different motivations. And so by understanding that someone is coming to the website looking for CRM, we're going to evaluate their visit differently than if they came looking for e-commerce. And then even then, if they were looking for CRM, we look at words that they used with CRM, such as vendors or free, and we can treat them differently and measure their visit differently based on the motivation that they give us in their search word. I want to take just a moment and talk about specifically visit-based, getting a little bit more into the behavior and how people act. You see, we can see distinct differences in how people use a website based on where they came from. For example, if someone comes to your website through a link on a news article or on a blog, they will stay longer, they will read more pages, and they will typically have a higher conversion rate than any other type of visitor. People that come from search tend to be in the middle, and people that come from social media tend to be very low engaged. They don't read as many articles, they don't stay as long on the site, and they don't convert. And the main reason is as we start to understand how people are engaged before they come to your website. Meaning, when someone is on a news website, they're interested in that story. When they see a link for more information that takes them to your site, they're already engaged with the content. And then they go to your website, already engaged. People in social media are not engaged in a specific subject. They are engaged in multiple subjects as their Twitter feed goes and keeps revolving with more and more information, and eventually they pick one, click the link, and many times there's no information in the link to tell them what they're going to see. So as a result, they're not engaged before they even come to your website, and maybe you have the information that they want. So we look at bounce rates to give us a good idea as to how valuable the content is. One company that we did work for contacted us to find out if they should create a brand new website because their current website had a 60% bounce rate among all visitors. 60% of their visitors would leave after they saw one page. Well, we dug into the analytics, and what we found is it was primarily one page that was causing all of the bounce visits. And this website was a sugar substitute, and little packets of sugar substitute. And what we found out is that the page that had a chart of how many packets made a cup or a teaspoon or a tablespoon, that's what people were looking for, and that's the page they found. And so what we found in reality is this was a successful visit. People were looking for how many packets would create what they needed for their cooking recipe. And they found the information, and usually it was a branded search. So this was a successful visit. The 60% bounce rate was a good thing, but no one was engaging with the content. This was the only thing that they wanted. And so this was an opportunity to learn more about the visitor. And we had to relearn who the visitor was to this website. For one, they had to have many packets of sweetener, because if they're cooking, they need more. They probably have a box of packets sitting around to use some. We also found out that they're probably cooking. They're not sitting at their computer. They're not sitting and searching. They're active. They have a question that is immediate. And then also what we realized is they are probably cooking for other people. You see, when people are searching for sugar-free, it's not because they need the sugar-free, it's because they're not used to cooking sugar-free. And so we went to Google Trends and we started searching for sugar-free to see how often and when people search for that. We saw there was a specific correlation in the holidays in the US. November and December, people searched for sugar-free more often than other times. We also looked for sugar-free recipes, sugar-free cookies, and the trend was exactly the same. When we looked at the analytics for this company, we saw that the bounce rate increased dramatically at this time of the year every year. And so that was an opportunity for us to engage the best customers of this brand without even knowing who they were. And so we were able to understand more about the demographic profile of our user, understand their behavior, and then that resulted in opportunity to engage them at another level.
So we have finished with this first question. Do we have any question in the room? The first question gets the free book. Who is ready to start first?
A book for free. Un livre gratuit. I will take it. Okay, so no question? So I have one question.
One question.
No, one there. Caramba.
Hello, my name is Sammy. I have a question for you. How you'll know that someone is interested in the products through a shop, a retail shop, and after that going to Google, compute the name of the shop, and then track it on Google Analytics. How you'll know that, first of all, he will know the trade or the brand through a shop before going to Google. How you can track that?
Usually how do we track the brand? How do we know if they know the brand prior to going to Google? That's where we look at the keyword data, the keyword referrals, to see do they use the brand name in their search phrase, and that will tell us then if they're familiar with the brand. However, usually what we find is that when people are searching and they have an immediate need, right now I need something, they usually forget about the brand and they type in what they need. After they type in what they need, then they start seeing the brand websites, and that helps them remember this brand that's when they start the association. But what we've seen behaviorally is people first search on their immediate need.
I had one question. I like a lot the story of the red shirt, but I have a question from an analyst to another. What was the percentage of red shirt in the ship anyway? You know, in the enterprise. You didn't say that.
I get asked that question many, many times. We don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know. So it could be a great percentage. I could go to Wikipedia maybe and find
Perhaps,
out.
yes. I have a more serious question. The model you explained at the beginning, the where, what, and how they react, seems to be a very, I should say, a KISS model. You know, keep it simple. Okay.
Yes.
So, what is the percentage of American company you're working with, who have a more sophisticated model, this simple model, or no model at all?
Well, seeing that I usually get called by companies that don't have a sophisticated model and they want to have one, I would say that there is a small percentage of companies that are doing very well, understand analytics, and use all that they have. I would say a very small percentage at the top that are doing a very good job. Most companies that I talk to are still trying to understand how to use it, and still many companies are still reporting unique visitors, time on site,
big numbers.
page views, and we have to grow up.
Cool.
Do you have other questions in the room? Okay, so I think we can move on for the second question. Jingle.